Welcome to the Backpack Show. Can you believe it? It's just me alone today. I am solo. My co-host, Kerry Gorgone, the better part of the show, by the way, has gone and left me. She's off on some adventure. She books these vacation adventures. Remember we had that person on the show? I can't remember the name of the company, or I would. But they don't even know where they're going until a couple of days before. They tell them, pack cold, poosh, and off they go. So she's somewhere and I'm here, and that's what you get. I have Tiffany Thompson today from Echoing Green, and I have Fagan Harris, who's a fellow of Echoing Green, who runs Baltimore Core, and we're going to talk all about the coolness of developing nonprofits, giving people their voices, looking for raising money for education, and kind of moving the world forward. There's a lot to cover today, but I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need more comments than normal. I'm going to need more interaction than normal, and probably have to remind me of a couple of things. And who can I make bad jokes to now?
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gorgone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show. Finding a guest host would kind of blow, but every now and again when I watch that little rolling credits, I think, it'd be great to grab Mix-a-Lot and have him be my guest host sometimes, or John, Epic Voice Guy. So I'm going to see a couple people out here already. Hi, Leslie. How are you? Hi, Deb. I was already having a whole full-fledged conversation with my parents, my biological father, Steve Brogan, and his wife, Diane Brogan, from Las Vegas. They're there to make Fagan feel better because Fagan is up on the West Coast time, so you know how that could be for our guests. Tiffany's in New York, so she looks bright and bushy-tailed and be lovely, I guess. That's a word. Echoing Green. Chloe says hi from the afternoon already in Scotland, so we're going to go for it. I'm going to just grab her in. And look, my no host Kerry is in here being Kerry in the comments, which is how she started her life. So back, what was it? Came from the bottom and now now you're not here anymore. So I'm grabbing Tiffany. Tiffany Thompson from Echoing Green. Yeah, you're already laughing at me here. You're on mute, by the way. And hey, Fagan, how are you?
Oh my gosh.
It's like this. This is what you get. This is the show. We got to start in the beginning because
morning like this every day.
Kind of like that without the cameras going though. So Echoing Green. What is that about?
Yeah, so I'm sure nobody really knows about this organization. Sometimes people think we're like a climate org, but we're not. Echoing Green has been on the front lines of solving the world's biggest problems for over 35 years. And what we do, 35 years. And we identify what we call transformational early stage leaders like Fagan, who are essentially willing to speak truth to power, right? And they challenge the status quo. And what we do is we invest in their growth and their leadership through what we call our fellowship program. And through our fellowship program, we provide early stage seed funding to these fellows. And the fellowship is about 18 months long. But the real beauty of the fellowship and the program in which we run is the community. We are an organization that has funded over 800 plus fellows across the world. We're not only a domestic organization, we're a global organization. And over the 35 plus years, we have invested $47 million into ideas and leadership of fellows across the world. And 80% of those leaders that we funded remain in the social sector today. So a lot of the work that we do is transformational across the world. And the one thing I'll also say is, as a result of this fellowship program, $6.6 billion have been raised by fellows in the service of social change. So we're really, really proud of the work that fellows like Fagan do, particularly in Baltimore, and really excited about the work that we've been able to do, particularly over the last couple of years as we pivoted our organization to focus more deeply on racial equity. And I can talk more about that as well, but would love for Fagan to talk more about what he does,
Well, I'm gonna drag that out of him now. So, Mr. Fagan Harris, you run a thing called Baltimore Core, and talk to us just a little bit about that and how this came about in and through working with the nice folk at the Echoing Green.
Sure. So 10 years ago, I founded Baltimore Core with a really simple premise that we have outrageously talented people in our community, but they're often underestimated and they're often overlooked. And that can lock them out of opportunity to both improve their lives, but improve the condition of the city. And so we're a human resources platform for the city of Baltimore. We help connect our city residents to full-time opportunities in city government and nonprofits and social entrepreneurship. And we help them achieve their potential and to drive change in the community. And in 2014, I was an Echoing Green Fellow, and it was such catalytic investment for our model and our organization at a time when I think we were really struggling to get people to believe in this notion that you could invest deeply in communities like Baltimore and lift up its people and make a real difference. And so it was a huge moment for us, being awarded the Echoing Green Fellowship, and I just love the community.
Baltimore has its own thing going on. We had a chance to interview a little while back DJ Magic Mike, and there was a great documentary on Netflix about him, and I'm gonna forget her name. But they taught us a whole lot about the difference between Baltimore sound. You can never say the T in Baltimore; you're not allowed to. And the only other thing that I have to say, because it's just sticking on the edges of my teeth, and if I don't say it, I'll like go insane, is comedian Roy Wood Jr. has this great joke about the fact that he says, "Where were you the first day you learned that Idris Elba was not actually from Baltimore?" Found out he was British. He makes it sound like, when the space shuttle blew up, or, when 9/11 happened or something. Where were you discovered that Idris wasn't from Baltimore?
But The Wire is one of the greatest shows to ever come on TV. So.
Top 5 best shows in the world, I have been told.
Yes, it's very. You've never seen it, Chris?
I've seen The Wire. Come on. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I would hang up the show on myself if I hadn't seen The Wire. We don't talk about season 2 though. He's like the Bruno from Encanto. We don't talk about season 2, but the rest of the show's good. Season 1. Who went from like all of those incredible performances? Who went from characters like Stringer to give that weird white guy a boat patrol show on the season 2? Like, that was some real acid. So anyway, I'm sorry, we're gonna get our show back on track, but that's Fagan. We'll get back to some questions about that really specifically. But look, we dug into talking a little bit about a TV show, right? Well, there's a documentary film called Unwavering: The Power of Black Innovation. Talk a little bit about this and how did that come together? And there's kind of 2 documentaries, the kind that people watch and the kind that people talk about. Right? So I want to know which one this is. Is this the one that people like put their money in it so they kind of look at it, or is this the one where like, did you see and what's the hook in there that's going to make me need to see Unwavering versus just be polite to you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Fagan's in it, and so am I. So I think you should just watch it for that. But Unwavering, let me give you a bit of a backstory. So first of all, Unwavering is a short documentary that is really focused on the power of Black innovation. Really about what does it mean to invest in Black folks who have been long doing this work around innovation and social impact way before the world started to wake up. So as we all know, 2020 was a crazy time. What we were having was COVID. And then there was racial injustice all across this world. And what we saw was a huge influx of money go into Black and brown leaders across this world. But there were Fagans of the world who were long doing this work before 2020. And imagine if philanthropy and investors had even opened their eyes to recognize the power of what Fagan and Brittany in Baltimore and Cole in Baltimore were doing, right? So what we did was we went around the country and filmed a number of our fellows. So in 2012, we launched we all launched a fellowship called the Blackmail Achievement Fellowship, which was the first of its kind program in the social innovation space that was dedicated to supporting leaders who were improving the life outcomes of Black men and boys in the United States. From 2012 to 2020, we supported 90 fellows, 90% of them being Black. And the BMA Fellowship, over the 8 years of their duration, collectively raised $64.9 million, right?
Wow.
And these folks had been doing the work. It was long in their ancestral DNA that Black people have always built innovative solutions. Black people were the first people to launch an Uber. We were the first people to launch a bodega, right? And what would it look like if philanthropy funded the imaginations and visions of Black leaders? If we gave Black leaders what they needed to drive transformational change and really move away from a deficit mindset, right? So this film, it focuses on incredible Black leaders throughout the United States that are building transformational change ideas. And ask philanthropy and funders and investors, will you continue to show up when the cameras are gone, when the world has moved on to talk about World War III? Black folks still need this type of investment. We are long here driving social change. So that is how Unwavering came about. And it is about really the question of who will stay committed to driving Black social change. And the answer is Black people. And will everyone else join us is the question.
It's a beautiful question. Let me see if I can just show just a teaser of this thing without getting booted off the internet for doing so. But let's see. Hang on one quick second.
What does a Black community look like with power and autonomy over its own destiny?
Black innovation is happening everywhere. It's always happened everywhere.
I think we revolutionized the narrative of Black people in social nation by acknowledging that we already did this.
What bringing and centering Black people always does is it brings a profound depth to your work. It makes it inherently transformative, and it gives it life.
It's important to have space as a Black male to grow, to have folks help you foster ideas, and then also to have a soft resting place for the resistance.
You gotta love the people you fund first. Because if you don't, then what are you doing it for?
Woo.
Look at us being fancy, Chris.
I'd say I thought you were going to a gala opening shortly after that.
You know what's so funny? I almost wore that dress today.
Did you?
That
I
would've
would have been here for it. Fagan, let me ask you a question. What was that process like doing a documentary film? Do you just feel like weird the whole time, or like how did it go?
It was emotional, actually. That was what was interesting about it. I got emotional talking about it because, you work so hard to do the work. And I've been doing this now for nearly a decade. And you don't actually have that many opportunities to reflect on the question of why you're doing this. And it does come back to love for me. I think loving our community, loving Black people, loving Black excellence, really fighting for this belief that Baltimore, this beautiful Black city, is worthy of more investment, is worthy of more attention, is worthy of a different conversation than what it usually is a part of. Makes you emotional because you have a lot of sweat equity in those ideas, years of it. And so usually you're so busy just pushing the boulder up the hill that you actually don't stop to really think about what it means to you. And so doing that actually I was like, wow, I'm feeling the feels on this. This is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany, unlike any guest I've ever had on the show who's kind of brought with, someone that is representative of the process,
Mm-hmm.
you have at the end of every other sentence said, okay, make sure we talk to Fagan. Make sure, as if I will skip him or something. Like, I don't know who that strange man is hiding in that closet, but I won't talk to him. I'll just talk to you. But it's endearing to me because it shows to me you are so concerned with making sure all the voices get heard. Is that something that is that you? Is that Echoing Green? Is that, it's something in the process of knowing I got to get everyone to these mics? Like, what's that about?
Yeah, that is such a great question and a really funny observation. I wake up every day doing this work because of people like Fagan. I got into this work because of the power of young people, particularly like how Fagan talked about the power of Baltimore folks. And for me, I see myself as an avenue, a bridge, a connector to really allow people who are doing the work to get the access and the recognition, right? So it's never about me. And I also think that's deeply connected to how Echoing Green operates, is that we believe that we are a platform that provides access, resources, and communities for people like Fagan. And then what do we do when we can get out the way? That's essentially how we really want philanthropy and other funders to operate, right? Like, it is never about us. We are not the experts of our community. The people most proximate and closest to the problems are. So how do we simply just open the door? How do we provide a seat and a chance at the table? And then move. That's really the work that we all should be striving for, that it's bigger than us, that we are creating a world that we may never even live to see. And if I could provide another opportunity for more Fagans to get access to opportunities like this, then I've done my job. And quite frankly, I believe the success that I will, have is not reliant on me getting the shine and the accolade, but it's about what does the impact look like for people like him and the communities that he serves.
You mentioned the Echoing Green had been around for, I didn't write down the number, so like
35 years.
No, 35 years. Okay. It was one or the other. I had it, could have been sketchy there.
Same,
35, same. So you started this project yourself, then Echoing Green, when you were like negative 12. 12 years before you were born, you started Echoing Green. So what was Tiffany Thompson, before you stumbled into this web? Like you couldn't have just worked at Arby's. Like, who were you and like, where were you going in the world? And when you saw this, what made you go, oh, this is my thing?
So, like most first generation Jamaicans, I was told that I should become either one of three things: a doctor, a lawyer, or a business person. So my stupid self told myself, okay, I'm going to be a doctor. And I was horrible at all things science and math in college. And I decided that, when I left college, I was going to rewrite what it meant to like drive social change and what it meant like to do really good work. So I started my career at the mayor's office in Philadelphia, really caring about the power of young Black kids. And I was working for Mayor Nutter under the Philadelphia Youth Commission. And my career, spanned a number of years in Philadelphia, doing a lot of grassroots organizing with young people. Left and went to the White House to work on My Brother's Keeper, which was President Obama's initiative after Trayvon Martin was murdered, which talked about Black men and boys in the United States. And then I saw the job at Echoing Green, which was around running its Blackmail Achievement Fellowship program. And I decided to take that job in 2015 because I understood what it looked like to work in federal government, and for folks not to know people like Fagan. Like the same big head honchos were at the table. And what did it look like if you like gave actual people on the ground who actually knew the communities an opportunity to be in the room, right? So I pivoted and came to Echoing Green, where I was running our fellowship program for over 3 years, left for grad school. And somehow they got me back here, Chris, in 2020, in this new role where I'm working on thought leadership, building out new content for the organization. And that's how Unwavering came about. As we sunset the fellowship in 2020, and we launched our Racial Equity Philanthropic Fund, which was, raising over $75 million. I knew that we could not let the fellowship end without telling the story of how powerful it was. We could not let it die on the internet in silence. And especially as the world started to care about Black people out loud, like what would it look like to put powerful Black people on screen to tell their stories? And to, demand the world to continue to pay attention to this work way beyond 2020 and 2021 and 2022.
I want to ask a white guy question because the way you said it, I felt it all the way in my belly when you said when the world started to care. Because, there's people who have been their best version of an ally, without any knowledge of that for most of their life. I would consider myself a pretty all right ally. However, then time comes in, things like Trayvon and everything else that comes after that. And we could name all the names. But then people did start learning, oh my gosh, I have so much more to do to be an ally. When we made this show, we were doing daily, we did more. We had a goal, more people of color than anything else. And I know that language is sort of in flux, but Black people, people of color. We had Indigenous people. We had all kinds of different groups of people and more women. Because that was the thought was that there was just so many, white dudes on screen, so we had to fix that. But I love how you said that, and I want to pivot it into a question for Fagan, so it's not just me commenting. But the question is, Fagan, do you see it that way? Did the world just kind of start to catch up a little bit, even in the last couple of years? And what was it like before and after for you to try to get what was important to you out there? Do you know what I mean? Like getting you wanted to be heard, you wanted to be seen, you wanted people to just feel the way that you were feeling about some of this, and you just wasn't catching.
I feel like in Baltimore, we went through what the country went through in 2020, maybe 5 or 6 years ago with the death of Freddie Gray. So Freddie Gray was a man who was born and raised in Baltimore, lived all his life in Baltimore, and he was murdered in police custody. And it ended up being this huge flashpoint for the city. A lot of white people and a lot of the white media called it the riots. They really focused on like a few isolated events. And for a lot of people, particularly in the social justice movement, for the Black community, we called it the uprising. It was really this kind of before and after moment of we're tired of living in communities where we are treated unfairly, where we're living shorter, less healthy lives, and where sometimes we're at war with our own state. And we're living with a government who historically has redlined these communities, has disinvested from these communities. And so I think the feelings were so strong around Freddie Gray that it forced everyone, including Black people, by the way, to think differently about how we do our work and how we center Blackness in our work and the language that we use. And to Tiffany's earlier point, Echoing Green was really out in front on this. And it's really hard to stress. I remember where I was. It's funny. You asked about Idris Elba, like, where were you when you heard that he wasn't from Baltimore? I remember what I was when I heard about the BMA fellowship. And I remember I had my dad emailed me, my mom emailed me, a bunch of my friends. They were like, you need to do this. This is like your thing. And I remember being like, oh my God, this is so bold and radical to just say the word out loud. Like, this is for Black people and we should care about Black people and we should center Blackness. That was a huge idea then. And I think Freddie Gray in Baltimore, our whole city had to come together around this. And I have seen where white and Black and brown and all of our communities have come together to say, we got to do better and we got to work harder at this. Fast forward to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. I do think people have started to open their eyes. And I do think you're starting to see kind of consciousness emerge. And I think the trick is for it to endure and for us to continue to do that work together and to be vulnerable and to engage with the pain that open up these conversations often entails, and to make sure it doesn't become like what environmentalism, what they call greenwashing, that it becomes kind of a marketing thing or a way to drive clicks or eyeballs as opposed to like an authentic connection to the work. And so that's where time will tell, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we have seen a meaningful shift, and I think it's going to show up in the work.
I've been thinking like the last minute and a half made it even harder for me to respond and listen to your piece. I had said, I'm not going to just name the names, and I was like, that's the point. We're supposed to say George Floyd. We're supposed to say Breonna. We're supposed to say it over and over again and not let the names die. And I'm apologizing to you both. I would have kept it going. I should have said it. All right. So listen, I have comments from the audience and I didn't get to them. Deb Lee, by the way, I laughed out loud. She had a slight typo. It said connectors are essential for fools who don't have the platform to get their voices. She meant folks. Connectors are essential for folks who don't have the platform to get their voices heard, which is absolutely true and accurate. Clearly, the world hasn't met a connector like Tiffany Thompson before. So Leslie says it is amazing work and so important to provide the opportunities and lift people to show them that they can make huge difference in their communities around the world. And that's for sure. That's for sure. I got to go back to one quick thing, which is I cannot fathom you going in for looking for the job at Echoing and them looking at your resume and going, oh, I'm sorry, it says here your last job was with President Obama. You're like, I think I'll just play up this place next. Like, that's come on now. Like, what? That's says here your last boyfriend was Brad Pitt, and our date's over. Thanks for your time. It was good. How did that go down? Like, were they like, what? Like, and asking you all those kind of, or it was always very professional. What did you do there?
Well, I'm not going to lie. Cheryl Dorsey, who is the president and CEO of Echoing Green, also a Baltimore native, is an established Black woman herself. She was in, the White House Fellowship Program. She sat on I don't know if it was Obama. I don't want to lie. She sat on a social innovation task force. So Cheryl comes to this work very well connected, triple-time Harvard graduate. So she's really, keen and aware of the political dynamics and super connected in the space as well. So it was just a value add to this organization in a way that Cheryl brought a lot of her skills and her resources to this work. I was just additive and didn't quite lead with, the Obama, but really what does it mean like to do good work with good people?
She was big potatoes too. So if you name dropped Obama, whatever. She goes, have you met a Mandela? Come on, get back to me. All right. Listen, I forgot to do ads. I knew I was gonna, so I screwed up. I'm gonna put you all backstage just for a minute. I'll do ads real quick. Okay, hang on. You don't go anywhere. Don't go pee or nothing. It'll be real quick. Like, I mean, you can, like, if you had to. Hey, want to have an audio podcast? You can. We use Castos to do ours. It's super easy. And our friend Matt Medeiros went over there. That's why we did it. Because I had been using my last podcasting host since 2006. And I wasn't really interested in changing, but I did. And it was pretty good. Castos.com. Hey, want a .online domain? You can get one really quick. You could be Fagan.online for $1. cbrogan.me/online. Use the code Chris in all caps because reasons. And you can have your own online domain. Hey, want a show just like this one, except less funny, or maybe more funny? Let's be real. You go to cbrogan.me/StreamYard and you can get in on this action. StreamYard lets you make a show like this, run it, push all the buttons, but it will not remind you when to do the ads. You fool. Hey, want to stick it to the man and not use Google as a search engine? You can. Presearch.com lets you do some really cool stuff. And if you remember to sign in, Kerry's not here to tell you that part of my story. If you remember to sign in, they will actually even give you crypto coins that you can then use to stake things. So you say best connector in the world, and it'll just fling to Tiffany's page, but she just has to pay a couple, social coins or whatever to get that done. Presearch.com. Ad reads are fun. Well, because these people pay us, so they're very nice people. Here's Tiffany. Here's Fagan. We're all back. We got a handle. And, we only have a few more minutes left, but we have still so much more to go. I have a few questions. I'm going to start with Fagan. Things around projects like this, you get a bag of money, you get told, go do this thing, you get launched. And then everyone kind of walks away eventually. Like eventually the balloons pop and they're no longer in the back of all the little metal chairs. You gotta run this. You gotta do this. You gotta decide what's next. How do you start planning your trajectory for all of 22, all of 23, and then where do you plant your seed that teaches everything that you brought from Echoing Green forward to the next group? How do you become the next little sapling for Echoing Green or whatever?
I love that question. Mm-hmm.
I've got, I think, a decent answer for it. I'll tackle the first part. First, our goal was always to build an institution. Baltimore Core today is an organization with revenues in excess of $10 million a year.
Whoa.
Like dozens of people work there every day. Thousands of people are touched by the mission. It handles a lot of sensitive and important work for the city of Baltimore. Our scale contact tracing, our COVID response as a city, like our organization drove that. We work hand in glove with the city to help facilitate youth employment for thousands of young people a year. We stand up some of the most innovative and promising initiatives in a major American city, and now we're replicated across the country. And so I say that not to brag, but I do want to highlight a very important point. A lot of times people hear things like this, like, oh, a fellowship, or, they've got this project or this program, and it connotes small.
Mm-hmm.
And people hear small and they're like, oh, that's like really cute. And what they don't realize is that a lot of us are running like major, large companies that are big drivers of employment and big drivers of investment for a lot of people. And the stakes are very, very high. And we're governed by like independent boards of directors, and we're extremely accountable to the people who invest money and resources. And we're extremely accountable to the communities we serve and to the people who work in our organizations. In terms of how we kind of pay it forward, in 2015, after Freddie Gray, we started something called the Elevation Awards, and it was directly modeled off Echoing Green, which is how do we see the next generation of Black social entrepreneurs here in Baltimore. And Echoing Green do their enormous credit, and this is so rare, just to pull the curtain back on like social justice movements and some of the drama that can happen. We don't usually collaborate well, or we don't always collaborate well in our space, right? People have a scarcity mindset. They're competitive around funding. People feel like something's coming up on their turf or their territory. They may not help or assist. I reached out to the team at Echoing Green and said, hey, we want to do this. And more importantly than us doing this, we think these folks are a pipeline for you all. And you are the global leader. You are the most prestigious, the most like legendary kind of seed funder in this space. We're a place-based organization in Baltimore. Like, we'd be honored to see if we can get some of our folks into your pipeline. And they said, bring it on, please. And so that's where Brittany Young came from. And Brittany's gone totally global as a leader. And so I'm proud that we kind of have been a part of her story, and so thrilled that she's like gone on to Echoing Green and done so many amazing things. And so many others have as well. And so there's a joke in Baltimore. We're like a little bit like the Russian doll at Baltimore Core. Like there's more of us, like the more layers you pull.
Wow.
And that's intentional. And that's part of our model and our work, is that it's an intentional talent and human capital strategy for Black and Brown communities that takes the long view and then links up with our partners nationally and around the world who also share our values, like Echoing Green. That kind of generational work is what it's going to take.
That's a very big answer. I like it. And I'm going to tell you something too. When you said something about that you think of these things as really small organizations, absolutely I did. Absolutely in my head, I had this vision of like, a couple of offices that someone gave you for real cheap and a lot of leftover used stuff and, just kind of running around. Practically at mimeograph levels of technology and all that. And, the minute you said 10 million, I was like, oh, pardon me. Like, cause that's real revenue, like to manage that kind of budget and all that sort of thing. And to keep that kind of money going to the right places, that's significant. And I don't know, I guess it's my commentary on nonprofits almost never get the funding they deserve. And that, missions that are important never get the, it wasn't like I didn't think you couldn't do it. It was that I think the mission is always so under supported. And that's, I'll turn that into a question for Tiffany, which is, it is hard to get the loot in the last few years of, like you said, as people kind of wake up to things and like, oh man, we should really do more here and be an ally.
Yeah.
Okay. So money went up a little bit, but now we're at like, $5 gasoline. We're at, oh no, there's a world war, and you're going to face a lot of the stuff that happens to, health issues. Heart disease fell off the table the minute COVID showed up. No one's giving money for heart disease or brain disease. All these, places all kind of clamoring for that dollar bill. So how are you going to get more attention, awareness, and money going forward? And is that a significant part of the, the meetings and stuff? Is that a big part of what you go after looking?
Yeah. So that's actually a great tee up in terms of like, in 2020, as I said, we're, it was the middle of a global pandemic and like exacerbated longstanding like structural inequities impacting like communities of color. And in that very moment, Echoing Green launched what we called our Racial Equity Philanthropic Fund. And the Racial Equity Philanthropic Fund was our commitment to placing a stake in the ground on what it means to fight exclusively and explicitly for racial equity. And actually, when we launched it in 2020, it was only supposed to be a $50 million fund. And imagine an organization that for the last 10 years, as we ran the BMA fellowship that Fagan was a part of, we couldn't get a single funder past the initial funder that funded it to fund that work. So for 10 years, we struggled to fundraise for a very clear, successful fellowship focused on Black communities. For 10 years, nobody would fund it. And then in the middle of a global pandemic and on the heels of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd dying, we raised $50 million in less than 18 months.
Wow.
And then we said, all right, we're going to raise the ceiling to $75 million. And we're almost at our target of doing that. And what this $75 million will do for us is it will help us fund 520 social entrepreneurs and help launch and scale their focus on racial equity. And what that will look like is funding 120 new fellows and then refunding 400 of our alumni fellows like Fagan. And what that really means is that what we noticed was, as a result of racial bias in the philanthropic space, that folks who left our fellowship then had a hard time raising funds after. So it was super easy for them to get early stage funding. And then once you reach big time, like people fund the big folks, but no one is really funding that middle. So what we said was, we're gonna, what we call follow-on funding and give money to our fellows as a trigger to the field. Like, look, we have vetted these folks. We'll continue to invest in them. So over the next 3 years, we'll be investing in over 400 of our alumni fellows. The other piece of it is, like Fagan said, we know there are brilliant young people across this world doing work. So we're going to do work with 5,000 leaders across the world to on-ramp them to the social innovation space. And then the last thing is we're going to work with 10,000 corporate employees, allowing them opportunities to engage with fellows like Fagan to fight for the movement of racial equity. So we're really excited about the work that we're going to be doing and really about the impact that we can have in fellows like Fagan and the ones that we haven't even met yet.
I'm here for it. I mean, my gosh, the follow-on funding idea is a big idea. And, as I'm thinking about the other thing I was thinking about, and it was a compliment I paid about, you're connecting and all that. We had a person on the show a little while ago, and her name was Dr. Nashley Cephas. And she actually, her day job is really cool. She works at Amazon right now, making their AI less racist. So she, artificial intelligence has all this racial bias built into it. And she's the scientist who has, gone on to kind of help that work go forward and be important and all that. And she'll, of course, share everything she knows with all the other AI of the world and kind of try to make it less racist, because right now it's crazy how that works. But she got a pretty good bag, either from just her regular work at AOL or something. And she was born and raised Jackson, Mississippi. And so she bought like this massive plot somewhere downtown, and she's turning it into a big tech hub that is supported by a lot of like regular functional businesses in the meantime too. It was going to be like, I think it was a $20 or so million gig. I don't know. Let me swing to the beginning of the article. I'll tell you the numbers. It's now a $150 million project. It's called the Bean Path. And the reason I brought it up was that because it's community made physical. And that the jobs that they're giving are, like there's a haircut, like a barbershop. There's a yoga clinic. There's a whole bunch of food places there. So you don't have to be like some crazy technologist making the future of space cars and science men or something. You could be like a yoga person and still get some money out of that business, that fund. And I said it just because I feel like if you start putting thousands of entrepreneurs out there in the world and they start finding these other people who are ready to catch them and bring them into their little communities, it seems like, this could really go somewhere. So, just thought, you're very busy people. All right, I'm gonna go to the other parts of the show. I did my ads. I got to do some stuff, but I got to get you out of here too. So, we've got the person of the day.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
Boom, indeed. All right, I'm gonna give it to Leslie. She was saying that I think it's great that people can make a huge difference in their communities around the world. It's good to show and to highlight this kind of work. I would have given it to Deb just because she made me laugh, but that was, my own foolishness and not her. All right. We have one question that we ask every single guest that's ever been on the show. This is the Backpack Show question. This is what goes in your backpack. Again, this could be something physical. It could be something metaphorical. If I asked Kerry what's something physical you could throw in the backpack, she'd say an extra set of teeth, which was answered by DJ Cummerbund, who likes wrestling. That's the reason we think he mentioned an extra set of teeth. We're not really sure why. And we did once, in fact, ask a burlesque dancer, Ariel Helvetica, what was something she could add to the backpack, and she said kindness. And the reason we always bring up Ariel Helvetica is because when she answered kindness, she and Kerry and the other guest from a black woman, Nikki Porche, laughed in her face because they were still laughing at Nikki's thing she added to the backpack, which was black women. We said, like some kind of trafficking? You want us to put a bag of black women by the border? And she goes, no. And they couldn't stop laughing. So with that
gosh.
I'm going Fagan first.
I love that you're going Fagan first.
I knew you would. Fagan Harris, what are we going to add to that backpack? Something physical or metaphorical, whatever you want. What do you got?
I'll be honest. It's been a tough week in my world.
Okay.
And so I've been thinking about this because I was like, man, I don't want to be a bummer on the Backpack Show.
You should be a bummer on the Backpack Show. You're amongst friends.
For me, the answer this week is joy and pain. Because we seem to carry both. And some days this work is so joyful and so inspirational. And then like yesterday, we had a big setback. And then earlier this week, we had a big setback in terms of just people we're close to who either had loss or things have happened to them. And it just reminds you of the stakes around the work, and that for all of our aspiration and all of our hopes and all of our dreams and all of our success, there's still a lot of pain and there's still a lot of loss and there's still too much, you know, death and hurt in our communities. There's still too much setback, and that's very, very real. And I think when you're close to it, you see it. And so try not to focus on that, but I don't know. I think because it's so fresh for me this week, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge it. So joy
I'm
and
glad you did. I'm glad you did, because I think that we always have to know that. We always have to know that can't be roses all the time. There's some real serious implications to what all this work means, and then no one's life is just 100, you know, and so they're going to come to an important project like this, but they're going to still bring what's around them into it too. So I appreciate that. I'm glad you said that. So you said a combo of joy and loss, joy and pain.
yeah.
Okay, we'll take that. I don't ever not, you know, be who you are. You're supposed to be who you are, even if we make bad jokes, especially because I make bad jokes.
Chris.
Tiffany Thompson.
That was funny. Not the your comment.
You're good. Something physical, something metaphorical. You know,
Yeah.
maybe potato chips or something. It doesn't have to be really tricky. Whiskey Nate said a book you hate, because he figured that if you kept reading a book you hate, you might actually get something out of it eventually.
I'm the kind of person that has a million books and like never finishes them. So there's that. I have a really nice looking bookshelf, and ask me if I've read half the books. No.
Right.
But what's in my backpack? You know, I thought about this all week too, and I think Fagan's answer inspired me. I'll go one like pie in the sky, and then I'll go one literal.
Okay.
For me, it's like freedom and justice. I actually have been dying to get a tattoo that has a heartbeat. I'm at the end of the heartbeat. It says justice. Because, you know, for me, freedom is what I think all of us are espousing to. And the freedom for Black people to be a goal for all of us, not just reliant on the Fagans of the world and myself. So if I can open my backpack and release freedom for all of us, that's what it would be. And then the other thing I'll say for my backpack is a mask. Like, I will forever be wearing my mask until the COVIDs are gone. I will be the one out here with the mask on. All right. So that's what I'll say on that.
I'm down with the people that keep their masks on. I mean, I just went to Miami, where you would think there's never been a disease. In so many ways. But keep the mask coming. I think it's important. One thing I was thinking about with regards to making these documentaries and trying to really build community is that my grandmother had her own really weird way of building community. And one of the parts of what she did was involved her oven, and the other part is involved her weird taste in music. And let me tell you, one of my grandmother's favorite bands in the whole wide world